Morning, everyone. My name is David Mott, a financial advisor here at Nexus One Financial, here for another market update. What's gone on in the week? A week ago, both the US and Iran were claiming victory, had a ceasefire in place. That's over. There was a US blockade. Everyone's confused except for Wall Street, who thinks this thing is all but over. We'll dive into the good, the bad, and the ugly, all these complicated market items in a nice condensed version. Let's break it down. So the market has been down. You've heard me week over week saying the game of ping pong, but taking one step forward, two steps back. What a difference 2 weeks make. It's all been put back. S&P 500 is positive year to date after the 5% rally it had in the last 5 days. Oil's come down to about $90 a barrel. Some other good news, the VIX volatility index, that market bouncing around, has dipped below 20 points. That is a 38% drop and a top 10 decrease in the history of the market. A lot of volatility is coming off the table. Wall Street's looking at this market very, very rationally. Had some good news also yesterday. Big banks, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Citi, all destroying earnings at a pretty solid tick. Even though consumer sentiment is down, people are grumbling over the cost of everything. Folks are still borrowing, folks are still buying, and it comes down to the earnings in the market. And finance companies absolutely delivered yesterday on the 14th. Another piece of good news, we did talk about some key data points on inflation. Not a lot to talk about there other than they landed as expected, if not slightly better. Inflation is still above the 2% stated goal of the Fed, but it is as expected, floating around 3%, leading the Fed not to have to make any drastic moves by analyst estimates. That's a good sign on inflation. As we look at core versus PCE versus CPI, oil is starting to increase inflation a little bit. So we talked a little bit about those inflation numbers that were coming out through a bunch of crazy acronyms, the CPI, Consumer Price Index, the PCE. These are all just different measures of inflation. Those numbers came out last week, and the long and short, they came out as expected. Oil is increasing inflation ever so slightly. Again, the number's above the 2% stated goal of the Fed, but again, it's not so high that the Fed actually has to move on these rate cuts at this time. So inflation is in a monitor state, which that's always a good sign. That's a good sign, especially with what's going on in Iran. We'll take that any day of the week. Now, not everything was good with the numbers that came out last week. Leading with housing. Housing numbers had a pretty good miss. Many real estate analysts were hoping this could be a rebound year in terms of selling your home. The January, February numbers came out very much lower than expected, and that was during a time when interest rates were coming down. Has analysts a little nervous about a housing rebound here in very crucial March, April months when rates were coming up and the conflict in the Middle East were going on. So housing is something that we are watching, off to a bit of a sluggish start when the market was hoping for a little bit of a rebound. Their leading indicator, studies came out, 1 in 7 folks on the Affordable Care plans missed their payments in January. So we're starting to see some demographics cutting costs. Is this a leading indicator of something to come, something we're monitoring? But usually when folks are cutting costs, the Affordable Care Act premiums are one of the first things to come down. We are seeing that happening in January to the tune of about 1 in 7. And of course, the two main drivers in this market that have been the mantra for years, tech, Iran. Let's talk about tech a little bit. A little bit of news coming out, a little bit of a changing of the guard, if you will. A research group is estimating for the first time ever that the company formerly known as Facebook, Meta, will possibly beat Google in terms of advertising revenue. So a king may be getting dethroned when it comes to that social media advertising giant. Again, not official, just some estimates on the preliminary data. In a little bit of litigation news, Maine is the first state in the union to actually ban data center construction. Maine believes that they want more regulation and some research done on the impact to grids and environment when it comes to the building of tech data centers. They are not alone. There are 10 other states looking to pursue similar regulation. We'll see how that trickles out. Again, when it comes to these data centers, they are being aimed at states that are friendly to the construction. So not a big needle mover, but it is funny to see the legal landscape change as tech and AI data centers continue to grow. And when it comes to Iran, Again, very much in the same. It's changing week by week. Wall Street is actually being pretty rational about it. They're reviewing earnings. They are not overreacting. They are pretty optimistic when it comes to that ceasefire or some sort of resolution happening sooner rather than later. Very much the reason why we believe in having a true strategy. You have to have numbers behind your decision. Can't think and feel your way through this. A lot of folks lost the game of chicken. But when it comes to this last quarter, these have to be very calculated, rational decisions. The conflict in the Middle East has now switched from the ceasefire breaking down, a blockade is in place, a lot of moving parts that is geopolitically changing week to week. Very important, though, and a beautiful example that you have to have a strategy using data behind the decisions you're making. Emotional decisions, thinking and feeling and guessing through these geopolitical situations is very risky. And a lot of folks did lose the game of chicken when it kind of came to this conflict. Important to have some cool tactical decision making data points behind what you do in these situations. It's something we absolutely do for you as our client and those watching as future clients. And of course, you're not letting me get through this video on April 15th without talking about tax day. Happy tax day, everybody. Remember to file your taxes by the end of the day, or at least file your extension. Fun fact, filing the extension gets you out of filing your taxes, not paying your taxes. By all means, if you think you owe money, file that extension, but still make sure the IRS gets some money. One thing I like to make very clear, I am very aware that the IRS is smaller than it has been in recent years. Do not get cute. That does not lower the likelihood of you getting audited. File your taxes, do it the right way. And by all means, if you have any questions about those taxes, don't hesitate to call your advisor, call me direct. More than happy to hash that out with you, as well as any strategy or financial talking points we discussed today. We appreciate your business. For those of you not clients yet, we look forward to working with you. And by all means, contact your advisor with any questions at all. Appreciate you and see you next week.